Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. So for this one we have quite an interesting beer for you. We're going to visit Evil Twin Brewing, who are run by Jeppe Jarnett Bjergso, the twin brother of Mikkel Borg Bjergso, who's the big boss at Mikkeller. And this beer is quite interesting, and the brewery itself is interesting as well. This beer is sort of a little bit Dutch, a little bit from Brooklyn in America, and a little bit from Denmark, from Copenhagen of course. So quite an interesting mix of things going on here with this one. So the first Evil Twin Brewing beer review that I'll do for you is Disco Beer, and this is an Imperial or double IPA, however you want to describe it, that is mixed with 10% Chardonnay grapes, and it's aged in the Chardonnay casks for a little bit as well. And I did try this on tap when I was in the Brewdog pub in Aberdeen, and this is where I got the bottle actually, and it's a really interesting beer, so I'm quite looking forward to reviewing this one for you and thinking a little bit more about it. But a very unusual beer we actually have in stock for you today. So as is usual then with my beer reviews, I will take you through a history of the Evil Twin Brewery, but as always, if you are simply just interested in the tasting of this beer, feel free to fast forward a few minutes into the video and you will catch that particular segment, and check out the brewery website, which is in the video description for you below. So anyway, as I mentioned to you, this brewery is run by Jeppe Jarnett Bjergso, the twin brother of Mikkel Borg Bjergso, who runs the Mikkeller brewery also in Copenhagen. But both Mikkel and Jeppe had apparently been very promising young track athletes, and Jeppe actually went to study in America in 1994 in Arkansas, but he left to return to Denmark after only 1 year over in the States. But Jeppe actually cites Carlsberg as having a big influence on the opening of this brewery, because he seemed to hate the idea of how much they actually influenced the Danish market, and their corporate image was simply wrapped all over Denmark, and you couldn't get good beer in Copenhagen at that time, and both he and his brother Mikkel say that. But in 1998, Jeppe actually started a beer club where he and 15 friends met to present different beers, and they would pick these up from different bottle shops and from a lot of the English pubs in Copenhagen, and they would present them and have a group tasting and share their thoughts on the beer. But some in the group were also home brewing, and this included Jeppe and also his brother Mikkel and Mikkel's friend Christian Keller, and they obviously went on to found the Mikkeller brewery. But in 2004, Jeppe actually considered opening up a beer bar with some other members of the group, but they couldn't apparently reach a collective agreement despite having found some kind of nice properties and stuff that they would open this up. But instead, he and one friend opened up a bottle shop, and this was all going on while Mikkel and Christian Keller continued with their home brewing, and of course, as I mentioned, they went on to found the Mikkeller brewery. But Jeppe actually continued to do his day job as a teacher while he was getting the shop up and running, and he also established an import company and began importing several American craft beers to Denmark, and he made quite a bit of money off this apparently. But during this time he had continued to homebrew, and he decided that it would also be fun to sell some of his own beer at his shop, and thus he established Evil Twin Brewing. But the big break for Jeppe actually came when a friend from Chicago was visiting him in Denmark in August in 2010, or autumn in 2010, sorry. But she and his wife convinced him to go down to the Mikkeller bar and meet Brian Ewing of 12% Imports, and the pair actually agreed an import deal to America, and the first shipment of beers that he sent across was of 20 pallets, and apparently this sold out within 24 hours. So the beer was really successful on its move to America. But Jeppe and his wife actually later went through the lengthy process and decided to emigrate to New York City in 2012, and that's where Jeppe actually wants to establish the brewery a little bit more. So they're kind of making the move from being a gypsy brewery, if you like, and I think they might actually establish their own sort of brewing facility in New York City. But just to list a few of the other places that they do actually brew at the moment, their head office is located in Brooklyn in New York, but the beer is, as I say, brewed in many different facilities. This includes the Amager Bryghuis, which is in Kastrup in Denmark, Brewdog, which is from Aberdeenshire in Scotland of course, Brouwerij de Moelen, who are from Bodegraven in the Netherlands, and there's also the Fanu Bryghuis, which is from Fanu in Denmark, Two Roads Brewing Company, who are from Stratford in Connecticut, and also Westbrook Brewing, who are from Mount Pleasant in South Carolina, and there's a few other ones where they brew just a few beers as well. But Jeppe says that he hopes to bring most of the production to the US in the future. So that's your sort of brief history, if you like, of the Evil Twin Brewery. Well, so we'll get on to the tasting of this guy now. As I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this guy is a 10.5% Imperial IPA that's blended with 10% Chardonnay grapes, and it's brewed at Brouwerij de Moelen in the Netherlands. So that's why I said to you this beer is sort of part Danish, part American and part Dutch as well. So a really interesting sort of blend of things are going on with this guy, and I believe this guy is actually also aged in casks as well. But I'll bring up the camera and just let you have a little brief look at the artwork on this guy. All of the Evil Twin Brewing ones kind of have the same sort of idea to it. You can see just on the V there, there's sort of devil horns kind of cutting into the side of that, and of course that's a reference to Evil Twin. Of course, he probably, I don't know if the idea is that he's Mikkel's evil twin or whatever, if he's the evil twin of the pair, but it's quite an interesting way to put it. And as you can see, as I mentioned to you, there's the 12% mark on it there, who are their importers over to the United States. So it's a really quite simple artwork, but I think it works really well with this one. They just put a plain bottle cap, a plain gold bottle cap on this guy here, but I'll just read out the little product description that's on the side for you here. It says, Disco Beer is a Venice IPA. Thoughtfully aged on Chardonnay wine barrels, this rock star of a beer is a real party starter. No more shy beer geek. Drink it and you will forever own the dance floor. Produced and bottled by Evil Twin Brewing at Brouwerij de Moelen, Bodegraven in the Netherlands. Best before 2015, store dark and cool. And it has a little government warning on the side as well, because of course the government has to look after us, as they always say. But let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting here. Really looking forward to trying this one for you. Nice smoky opening there, but what I've read with this beer is that you really have to watch with pouring it, because it will give you a massive head. So we just need to do a nice sort of a slow pour on this guy here. But from what I remember of this beer, it is a really nice sort of winey beer. Kind of avoided getting a massive head from this guy, which I'm quite pleased at. So there we are. A bit bigger when I sugared up the last little bit, but I'd heard that people were having this overflowing and stuff like that, so I think I've done okay with it so far. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the colour of this guy. So it's a really sort of dark, hazy, as you can see there, it's a really sort of dark, murky, orangey amber colour. It's got about a finger of a kind of frothy and bumpy head there. It's off-white head, I would say. If I hold it up to the light, I can't really see much in the way of carbonation going up to the top there. Just tiny little bubbles sort of floating up to the bottom of the head here. But it's a really nice looking beer actually. If you see, I just put my fingers behind it, you can't see through it at all. Like I say, quite an opaque one actually. Very sort of murky, dark orangey amber colour. But it should be quite an interesting one for us to try. So let's give it a sugar and see how we get on with the aroma here. You can really smell the sort of white wine Chardonnay aroma from this. I'm not the greatest fan of wine. It's probably something that I just need to get a little bit more into, to be honest. But you can really pick up that sort of white winey oxidised grape aroma from this guy. But you can pick up a little bit of sort of earthy and woody notes coming out too. And some caramel, but the main component, like I'm saying, is this very sort of sharp and overripe fruit from it. There's a little bit of kind of a citrus and grassy character to it as well, which is quite interesting. But mainly it does smell of this sort of white wine Chardonnay thing that's going on. See if I can just get a little bit more of the head away and get a bit more of an aroma. I'll give it a little sniff again a little bit later on, but let's give it a taste and just see how we get on with this guy. So this is the Disco beer from Evil Twin Brewing, based in Brooklyn in New York, and also kind of brewed a lot of their stuff in Denmark, and this guy is brewed at Brouwerij de Moelen in the Netherlands. So let's give it a taste and see how we get on. Yeah, very, very Venice, like it says on the label here. There's a lot of sweet caramel malt there just underlying this sort of grapey and white wine character though. I think there's a little bit of some kind of oaky and vanilla flavour coming out too. But it's very, very sharp, as you would expect. The most prominent thing in this definitely is the sort of white wine Chardonnay grapes coming out on this. Yeah, the sort of the grapey Chardonnay flavours are sort of really sticking, and they're quite punchy in the front of the tongue. You're getting just a little bit of the kind of sweet caramel malt sitting towards the back of the tongue, and I'm sure there's some sort of woody vanilla and kind of nutty flavours sort of going in there too. It's actually it's a very interesting beer. It's not like anything I've ever really sort of tasted before apart from this. It's very unique. That's the word I'm looking for actually. But yeah, like I'm saying to you, a lot of really kind of sharp white grape, green grape, sorry, flavours in this one. White wine flavour. If you just let it sit on the tongue, you've got this nice sort of white wine flavour sitting there. And as it passes over, you start to get more of the kind of vanilla and oaky caramel flavours that are coming in there. It has just got a little bit of a kind of sharpish citrus character with maybe a little bit of grassy hop too, just sitting around the edges of the palate. But it's really quite tart actually. It's on the edge of being a little bit, it's not too cloying, but it's on maybe sort of pushing that boundary a little bit. But that's obviously personal opinion. As I've always said, beer is sort of subjective. Different people like different things. But as I say, really interesting. There's a very, very sharp, punchy grape thing in there. But yeah, I would agree with my take that I had on it so far. A really nice sort of sweet vanilla and woody caramel base. That's sitting towards the back of your tongue actually, just nice in the back of the middle there. You've got a nice little bit of the grapey aromas. They sit towards the front of the tongue, and round the edges you've got the nice sort of grassy and citric lemony flavours that are quite sharp as well. So overall it's a very, very kind of interesting blend of beer. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one, it's definitely mid-bodied. It's actually not too heavy and not as oily as you would think. The carbonation on this one, I think, for a double or an Imperial IPA, it's just a little bit more, but that sort of helps really bring out the kind of grapefruit, the sort of grapey flavours, sorry, on this. And it also helps give the beer a little bit more of a dimension and make sure that the grape flavours aren't too overpowering, because it brings out the citric and grassy character around the edge of the tongue a little bit more too. But at the same time, it does have a little bit of smoothness as you get more into it. The carbonation comes in with a little bit of punch to give you that sort of white wine flavour, the Chardonnay flavour, and then it smooths out so you get the nice woody and kind of the nice woody and vanilla flavours coming out as well. I'm sort of in the aftertaste getting just a little bit of earthy character to it as well, so it's a very complex beer that kind of needs a little bit of time just to get you sort of used to all the flavours in it. And as I say, it is slightly cloying, so if you don't like sort of fruit beers and stuff like this, then maybe this really isn't the one for you. But it's interesting, as I say, nonetheless. It's definitely a tasting beer that you should taste at least once. But overall, I would say it doesn't have much double IPA character in this one. It's got a nice little bit of alcohol warmth to it as well, I should point that out. But it's not a traditional double IPA, which is obviously with the addition of these grapes you wouldn't expect it to be. But it's a nice beer and it's very interesting. But I think this one, from what I remember, this was actually quite an expensive bottle, so it depends. If you really want to try this beer, then I would recommend you get it and try it, but be prepared to shell out a little bit for it. And it is a really interesting one that's worth trying at least once, but what I would say is maybe do it with a friend and sort of half the bottle, because it's maybe, in that sense, it's quite a difficult one to drink, and it's definitely a sipping beer. But you know, if you were watching a movie or something and just wanted to have the one beer, maybe this is quite an interesting one for you to try doing that. So I hope you found this beer review informative. Like I say, a very unique beer, my very first review from Evil Twin Brewing. I think their beers do tend to be a little bit more than other ones, so if you want to try some beers from this brewery, be prepared to shell out a little bit more. But from what I hear, their other beers are very, very good. This is the only one I can think of that I've actually tried so far, so I'll see if I can get another one or two and review those for you at a later date. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. If you do happen to have tried this beer, please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on it. I hope you found the beer review informative and haven't just found me to be a sort of rambling idiot on this one. But I thank you again for your support of my 245 or so videos that I've done now. And as always, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this beer review, and there will be more for you to come in the near future. Cheers.